Hey, that was the guy in the blue bathrobe running down the river.
Thank you. Are we ready? The July meeting of the Ojai City Historic Preservation Commission will begin. I'll start with roll call. Commissioner Basaccia?
Here.
Commissioner Boggs? Here. Commissioner Hill?
Here.
Liaison Akins?
Here.
Mr. McCready? Here. Oh, I'm sorry. Do we want to do that again? No. Okay. We just did roll call. Present are Commissioner Basaccia, Commissioner Boggs, Commissioner Hill, and Museum Liaison Brian Akins. With that, we begin our public comment period. I don't have any green cards tonight.
Minutes.
I'm sorry?
Minutes.
Minutes aren't on here.
There.
First is public comment, so that's what you want.
Yes.
Right now.
Oh, there, yeah, right.
That's what I thought.
Oh, there we go.
Too much heat today.
If there is any public comment, now is your opportunity. With that, we will review the minutes for approval. Does any commissioners have any changes or comments on the meetings from our June 12th commission meeting? Commissioner Hill?
Yes, I'm going to report an omission. As you recall, at the last meeting, we discussed at length the situation as to the landmark and Vilsack status of the firehouse. And as a result, and I didn't know exactly where this would go into, where it would fall in the minutes, but Commission Chair McCready appointed an ad hoc committee to see if we could resolve the differences between the city and the tenant or the applicant. And he selected Commissioner Hill and Commissioner Walker to do that. So that whole thing is missing from the minutes.
Oh, unfinished? On, is this on?
Commissioner Boggs?
On page 3 of 3, under planning report, the second sentence, it says, Chair McCready met with the property owner and the property owner chair that he will repair. He's repairing a chair?
Okay.
Did I,
Where are you at?
6, number
Yes.
6, planning report. Property owner chair, capital CHAIR. I don't understand what that means.
Yeah, that's an error.
So we're gonna remove that.
I
Well,
don't know, maybe it means something. What is it?
I don't think it means anything. I think it's a mistake, so we will remove it. It could read, Chair McCready met with the property owner and the property owner stated that he will
Okay.
repair the arch, but does
Okay.
not feel he needs a work permit.
So I just cross it out,
Okay,
cross out that word.
thank you.
I thought there was some chair I didn't know about.
Any further
That's
comments?
it.
Do we have a motion to approve?
I move that we approve the minutes with the corrections.
Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Meeting minutes are approved. Thank you. That brings us to item number 2. Libby Gatehouse number 18, 1001 Foothill Road, Rock Wall. We have a letter here from the property owners. Does staff have a report or comments?
Staff does not have a report. We received this letter on June 16th from the property owners, and we can suggest that we meet maybe on site, one of the commissioners and staff, to determine whether that wall is within their front yard. Because they're stating that they're fine, that they're not in the front yard. But it's hard to tell. I mean, we've only done, a drive-by. We haven't measured to see exactly where the property line is. I think we would probably need to have some kind of survey or something to determine where the property line is, and then measure back from that property line to see where the wall begins and see if it's within their front yard area. That's what staff would suggest, but of course it's up to the commission on the action that they'd like to take or what they'd like to pursue.
Okay. Are there any commissioner comments?
I have one.
Commissioner Hill?
This is kind of an interesting situation where they claim that their address is now 1001 Foothill Road. When the commission made this property into a landmark and gave it landmark status as well as Mills Act status, we visited the property. The entire commission went over there. And we did not enter at 1001 Foothill. We entered on what was then the front of the house on Palomar Lane. And we went through the gate there and went through the front door, and that was it. So there's a question is, if you have a wall that you want to put up, because it has different restrictions on a side yard than it does on a front yard. If you merely change the address, what happens?
Okay, so
I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know what they originally claimed. You could easily go back in the phone books. You could find out what they said was their front yard historically, as speaking.
right, I guess, we would have to research to see what historically was their front yard. However, we can go to the assessor's parcel map and see that 1001 Foothill is their address. That is their legal address. Palomar Lane is
Private road.
a private road, so they would not have their front yard. Unless
what-
they had a reciprocal access agreement from that property owner to access their property off of that private road, that would not be their access. Their access is Foothill.
That's because we have a similar situation in my house. I live on Foothill. We really live at 714 Foothill, but the entryway to our driveway is down in the 500 block. And so our physical address where we chose to put our mailbox is at 522 Foothill. And that was our decision. That wasn't a decision made by, this is our front door type of thing. That you had to find out what.
Well, the city's building department decides the addresses. So someone can't come in and just say, well, I'd like my address to be on Palomar Lane. I don't want it on Foothill. Because then we get into an issue of reverse corner lots, and that changes setbacks and stuff as well. So this property is addressed on Foothill. That is their legal address. 1001 Foothill is the address they were given by the building department. And staff has made their determination based on that, because the front yard is based off of their property, which fronts onto Foothill. It can't front onto a private lane.
Well, we live on a private lane. Our road's private, and you better get the building department out there to bring me into code, because we've only had that address for 50 some odd years. And it's been at 522 Foothill. And what I'm trying to say is that it's an arbitrary thing in the case of an address. The only thing that's the front on that house on Foothill is the driveway going into the garage. And they put the mailbox out there, and that's their front yard. And we're looking at it as an historic structure, and we're looking to see what the frontage of the house is, and that happens to be on Palomar Lane.
Are you through?
Commissioner Boggs?
Which we can no longer even see the front of the house because of the wall. Now, if they can prove that the wall is legal, I would like to have our city attorney go over some of these, the rules, and make sure that it's legal. And if it is legal, I would like to pursue withdrawing the Mills Act tax break from that site. And we would need, of course, the lawyer to tell me if that's possible to do that. But I see no reason, if we can't even see it, why we should be giving them Mills Act status. So that's my opinion.
Any further comments?
I have one comment about that. And I'm trying to find a place in my emails here.
While you're looking, I want to comment that the last owners refused to meet with me to put the plaque up that says it's a landmark.
Still looking. It's not that.
Well, I think at the very least, we should request that the owners provide a drawing for us showing the wall and the portion of the wall that has been raised. And, you know, at that point, at least we'll have information that we can have in front of us that, you know, informs our discussion here. That seems like a fair request.
Here. I found what I was looking for.
Commissioner Hill?
Yes, this spoke, and this came from Heather, and we were talking about the firehouse, and we were talking about walls. And this is what is in the, this is in the Interior, the Secretary of the Interior Standard and Guidelines to historic, for historic preservation. And this is in the section on walls and fences and other elements that impact visual landmarks. A new wall or fence should not obstruct view of building and shall be approved by the HPC. Walls, when allowed in front of the facade, may not exceed 30 inches. A hedge or continuous landscape, and that's what's up there now, a hedge on Foothill, a continuous landscape feature shall be considered a wall. Landscaping in front of the facade must allow at least 60% visibility of the facade. And those are the standards that we have to consider. If we're talking even about the front, and it doesn't meet either of those standards. Certainly not on the side and the so-called side.
Ms. Waldstein, were you hoping to get further direction from us?
Well, I hear the comments from Commissioner Boggs, Commissioner Hill, and your suggestions, so I guess I just need the commission as a whole to decide what you would like staff to do, whether it is to contact the city attorney to determine the front of the property, and then pursue rescinding the Mills Act, or if the commission would like staff to request a drawing of the wall and maybe a site plan to determine where the wall is located in proximity to the property lines.
I think we need that at the very least because it is one of our historic landmarks. All of the changes to an historic landmark need to be documented, and they need to come before us. So at the very least, we need a drawing showing the wall and the dimensions of that wall and the height of that wall and where it occurs on the property. Then and only then can we really intelligently address it.
Right.
I think Commissioner McCready's absolutely correct. One of the things that happened here, whether it's in the front yard or the backyard, this is still an historic landmark, and a Millsack property. And it never came before this commission, before they put that wall up. They just did it themselves.
Right. They didn't obtain a building permit,
Yeah.
which would have started the process, because once they get a building permit, then the building official requires a work permit. So,
Well, I'd like to make a motion that we have staff request the documentation that I described. We have a second?
Yes, I'll second that.
So moved.
Hill. Oh, you said me?
No, I second it.
He seconded.
Thank you.
You have to vote on that.
Oh, I'm sorry. Commissioner Bisaccia?
So I'm voting in favor of the motion.
Yeah.
We're voting on the motion to request staff to ask for the owners to provide us with documentation of the wall.
I say yes.
Boggs, yes.
Hill, yes.
McCready, yes. Thank you. Item 3, Gateway to Encina Vista, landmark number 17, 1005 Foothill Road. This is the Vogue property. We have had this on our agenda it has come before us as a discussion item prior to tonight, and we've had some conversations with the owner. The gate, as you know, has gate and superstructure, I would call it, has been damaged and is no longer in place. It's been down for several months now. It is a City of Ojai landmark. What we need for the owner to do, in my opinion, is provide us with at the very least, a written description of the repairs he's intending to perform, so that we can, as a commission, decide whether a work order is necessary. Ms. Waldstein, do you have comments from staff?
yes, so staff prepared this administrative report for tonight's meeting, just detailing the chronology that has happened thus far that you just summarized, so I won't go over that again. But in addition to this report, the property owner has provided the commission with a letter regarding tonight's meeting, or responding to, I'm guessing, responding to this administrative report. So that's staff's report. I don't have any further comments, except that we can, I guess it's up to the commission. We can go over the ownership of the property, or what the property owner needs to submit to the city, but maybe we'll listen to comments from the commission first.
Can I,
Okay.
if you would bear with me, I just want to
Ms.
add
Wald.
one thing on to this, is that there continues to be a dispute between Mr. Vogue and city staff regarding who has ownership, or owns the property
I
which
know
the
that.
arch is underneath. And we would just like the commission to note that in order to clear this up, we need something more than just a written statement from the applicant indicating that staff is wrong. We need some type of documentation. If that still becomes a point of contention between Mr. Vogue and staff has called the clerk and gotten the recorder number of the document that was recorded, which was a resolution. We also have city staff documents that were done previous to either Heather or I being here, which show the location of this arch. Now, if city documents, for some reason, the historic documents that which current staff is going off of are somehow remiss or not accurate, we do need documentation submitted to the city that would assist us in clearing up this error, rather than continually calling it out that it's an error. So whatever Mr. Vogue has that he could provide staff, that then we could compare that to the city documents, and if there's an error, correct it.
We can correct it.
We would like to see those so that we can do that. The city has no interest in keeping our documentation or our archives wrong.
Okay.
So we would like to do that, so that we'd like the commission also to address that issue, along with whether or not it's Mr. Vogue and Renee that get these letters, because if they're half owners of this, then they're both responsible. But
Okay.
if this were to go into code enforcement, we really need to know who the letter would be going to. So we need the issue of ownership of the property underneath the arch, and thus the arch, cleared up.
Do you need the commission to direct you to request that information?
I think that it would be great if you would,
Okay.
because, obviously, we're not really sure what's going on with him at this point.
Okay.
And so if it's going to continue to be where, if it's going to escalate into some type of code enforcement with this landmark, then we do need that direction.
And as Commission Chair, I certainly don't want it to go in that direction. We need to acknowledge first, I'd like to acknowledge first what great stewards of the landmark the Vogues have been over the years, many years. And we know that, and I want to acknowledge that. Having said that, we have to treat the ownership parties of all of our landmarks equally, and everybody needs to play by the same rules, because what happens to us as a commission is we get people coming to us saying, well, why did you treat this party this way and treat this party differently? Everyone needs to be treated the same. I would like us to discuss the options that are before us. I think we need to ask the owner to clarify the ownership issue. We can ask staff to ask him for that information, and also to provide us with, just at the very least, a written description of the alterations or repairs he plans to make to the landmark. Commissioner Hill?
I thought that Mr. Vogt answered those questions in this letter. And he's talking, I'll quote from the letter. On or about April 25th, 2014, I met with Darwin McCready, Commission Chair, to discuss the repair. The meeting was amicable, and Mr. McCready was charming. At that meeting, I explained in exquisite detail to Mr. McCready how it was impossible to determine ownership through use of the assessor's records. We had a copy of the pertinent assessor's record before us, and I demonstrated that one had to be incompetent to come to the conclusion that I was the sole owner of the structure based on that record. So he's saying that he explained it to you.
That may well be.
So you guys aren't, and then he goes on and talks more about this ownership.
Well, can I just interject here? I mean, whether a citizen here in the city of Ojai is going to call staff incompetent without submitting documentation.
I know. It's harsh language.
I just want to, I work with staff. I think staff is amazing. And like I said, and I'll go on record as saying again, the documentation that was here prior to either one of us coming does not show that arch crossing any property lines. So I don't know what documentation he has, and without him submitting it, but just making blatant accusations as to staff's incompetency, I don't know how we can answer that, because we don't have anything in front of us. Maybe our records are wrong, I don't know. But to date, we went over them again today, and where they show the arch being, on the records we have here, the only thing we have to go over, it shows his portion of the flag portion of that lot being 39 feet. So if that arch is wider than 39 feet, then so be it, okay? But as it shows that throat, now I think what's really more the point here is that when we're going through and we're landmarking people, our properties or arches or anything in the future, we need to be more specific about where it's located, what it is, what the dimensions are for it, because I certainly wouldn't want to do this for staff coming down in the future. Because while he may have a very clear understanding about what he's doing and what he's not doing, Our documentations do not show it that way. There's not a legal description. There's not some type of meets and bounds of where it is or anything that you would normally see. So we're going off something somebody drew on a map that's been held in the archive records in City Hall here. That's what we're going off of.
Okay.
I don't know what he's going off of.
Okay.
I think it sounds like you're using the assessor's records. You're not using assessor's records?
We're using the assessor's records and the county recorder's
Let me just clarify this.
And
There's an assessor's map that shows his assessor's parcel. You know, it's a map. Someone has drawn the arch in, not us, somebody previous to us, and written down, and then we called and got the recorded document number from the county clerk. Is this correct, Heather? And because it was never our intention when this all started, this is standard practice of what staff does. Anytime we're going to write a letter to somebody and asking for something, we always verify the property owner, and that's done, which is standard practice based on the property tax rolls as of July 1st, the previous, so it'd be this July 1st. Whoever's shown on the tax assessors is owning that property. Now, if it's subsequent to that roll being called, we just send it to the known person at that particular point in time. So we looked at the map, we saw the flag, we saw it was drawn in, we went into the document that was recorded, which is the city's resolution. That's what we did. That was the thought process that we went through, okay? We made sure that where it was shown on that parcel, then we went back and backtracked who owned that parcel. Now, if for some reason there's something else that shows it being recorded on another piece of property, then that we don't have a purview to that. I called them again today to try to verify it, and I know you're going to be surprised, but they won't give it to me unless I pay for a copy, and I have to send it in via mail to the county clerk, or county recorder. So I'm just trying to say that we're open to being corrected,
Yes.
but it has to have documentation behind it, not just a verbal statement of someone thinking that they're correct and we're wrong. We're open to it. That's not a problem.
But just so that I'm clear, this particular landmark, the landmarking document shows it recorded to Mr. Vogue's property only,
And
as we have it today.
That's right. And I will just remind you again, not to belabor the point, but
Yes.
this is a lesson learned.
Yes.
When we do this from now on, and it's not a unique piece of real estate, but rather an improvement to the real estate, we need to have some kind of legal description so we don't get ourselves in this pickle again where we're going around and around of who even has, responsibility. Yes.
Thank you.
Two things. Are you working off of a survey? Was there a surveyor's map?
It's an assessor's map. Isn't that correct?
I
Well,
don't
no,
think
no.
it ever, I don't think it, no. We don't have any land surveyor who went out and surveyed it. I don't think
Yes.
anything like that was done.
That whole section of the Arbolata was surveyed, and I have a survey map of across the street of Foothill Park, and that was done on several different occasions. So I don't know if you do have a survey map. That's one thing. A few months ago, the Ojai Valley Museum put on a fundraiser event called Feasting on History. And we were one of the hosting homes, and we had, I think, 16 or 17 people at the house, and the Renees were at our table. In fact, Rose sat right next to him. And the discussion came up about that property, and Mr. Renee says, yeah, I'm a part owner in that property. So he, as far back as that Feast on History, he was owning up to the fact that he was one of the owners.
You're talking about property meaning the arch,
Yeah.
not real estate, but personal property, okay, a fixture on
No,
The structure on
the structure on the
structure,
property.
I'm talking about the whole
Okay,
thing.
so
The gateway.
if we were to assume Mr. Renee has half ownership of it, then, which we talked about this prior to coming to the meeting, the only thing that would mean is that going forward, we would have two parties equally responsible for coming before the commission and determining whether a work permit, it doesn't change the process, it
That's correct.
just changes who's responsible. So to date, we haven't heard from Mr. Renee, and if he is half responsible for this going on, and it turns out that ultimately this turns out to be a violation, then he's half responsible for it. So we will be reaching out to him, if the commission would like us to, and writing a letter to him and saying, please verify whether you're half owner or not, because the only issue for Mr. Renee is that if the violation occurs and he is half owner, he's half responsible for that violation. It doesn't change the process, but we will be happy to reach out to him and ask for some documentation. Again, I can't stress enough that staff isn't interested in keeping something that's inaccurate on the books. We're more than willing to look at whatever documentation they have. But going forward, we need to know, because at one point in time, it was an email sent to staff indicating that the arch was going to be altered by 4 inches, because if it was not altered, it was going to continue to be
Right.
hit by trucks.
Because the road's been raised.
Right. So altering this arch is not repair and maintenance. That is an alteration, and that requires a work permit before the commission. So I think it's really important that the public know when they landmark something that it's the decision of the commission and via staff, because we work for you, whether or not a work permit is needed, and we base that on what you submit to us and you say you're doing. So I think this has kind of all gotten topsy-turvy because we need something that shows what he's doing, and is he or is he not adding 4 inches onto either one, the foundation rock structure of the arch, or the actual metal part of the arch. And my understanding is the entire thing is landmarked. Is that not correct?
Sure.
So either way, and if you want to make the determination that a work permit is not needed, that is within your purview. That's what I'm trying to indicate.
But we need documentation.
We need, as we do with everything that comes in our department, we don't do it verbal.
Okay.
Verbal changes, we ask people to write down what it is they're going to do. They sign their name to it, that this is what they're going to do, and then we evaluate that submittal. And it's what we do day in and day out, and that's all we're asking for. Nothing different, than what we do. And then the determination made by either staff or commission would go into the public record. If somebody came back later and they said, I think that arch looks different, they would say, can I see the file on that? And we'd give the file to them, and they'd say, oh, okay. They applied for a work permit, and it was determined they didn't need one. It was determined that was repair and maintenance. That all needs to be there for the public. It's called part of the administrative record. That's what we do in our job day to day, and it isn't done verbally. It's done in a written form.
Thank you.
With our
Mr. Boggs?
report last month, the arch was to be raised maybe 2 or 3 inches. It was a very small amount.
Maybe 4.
Or 4.
Yeah, I think that what the owner was proposing was a combination of things, that over the years, the stone at the top of the columns had eroded and some stones had actually come off. Subsequent pavings and numerous pavings had raised the rose level, and I think the arch itself had suffered some sag. So the notion was that they would correct the sag in the arch and add to the top of the stone columns, but I'm not the owner. And so what I would like to see the commission do is request that staff make a request to the owner for a description of the work that's going to be performed. And the other item that we already talked about regarding ownership.
I just think that you're going to be inviting a war. I think they thought Darwin was charming. And if he has that much access to these people, and you said that you had tea and so on, it was very civil.
Very nice.
And that I think we're hung up over this ownership issue, the question of whether it's Mr. Renee's also on the thing, and that's he can go. This guy, I bet you, he could go on for weeks of writing these things, and they would be equally as caustic as this one is, and of his previous one that he wrote in the very beginning. So he sees a red flag when he sees the city knocking on his door or phoning him. And I think that there's more than one way to skin a cat, and that's by sending that we're having good luck with the firehouse now. And that's because as commissioners, we took the lead, and maybe Darwin would have better luck. And just trying to, we don't want to lose this landmark. We don't want to lose this situation. I mean, it's.
Okay, so look, I just want to interject this, and then, I'm totally willing to do whatever the commission wants. The problem that I see here is that staff is obligated to follow the municipal code, which is adopted by the city council. We don't have the purview to pick and choose what rules and regulations we apply to whom or whoever. We don't have that discretion. So when you're asking, and this has come up repeatedly about this arch for us to respond back, we are governed by the rules of the HPC, and I'm sorry if someone feels that those are insulting to them.
Well,
but I
can
don't.
interrupt?
Yes, go ahead.
I mean, we don't need to be specific about this applicant. The cogent thing, the important thing is that we have to treat all applicants equally. We have to.
I mean, if you want to reach back out to him, that's perfectly fine with staff. But I believe that the message that staff got was to come back with what the status of the process was and what was going on. We've reached out to him. He doesn't provide us anything. The normal course of action for us as city staff is when someone does that is eventually go into code enforcement because they aren't following the rules and regulations. If you would prefer to reach out as a commission, that's fine. But I understand where you're all going with this, that you don't want to lose the landmark. Then I suggest at some point we look at the rules and regulations that the HPC are operating underneath. It's very specific about a work permit. And as far as I know, the decision, like I said previously, decision on whether a work permit is needed or not needed is based on the definition of repair and maintenance. And if you go into the Department of Secretary of Interior's, triage or hierarchy of, maintaining, rehabilitating, reconstructing, things that the rules and regulations we operate underneath, there are some benchmarks, some thresholds for when it's considered an alteration. It needs to come back. If he disagrees, like every other process in the city here, if he comes into staff and staff makes a determination that he doesn't agree with, you are the body that he will appeal to. Just as if staff makes a business or building permit decision, there's a building appeals board. Ultimately, everything can be appealed up to the city council. There's a process for that. That's all I'm saying. And so we're obligated by that process. If you want to reach out to him and try to convince him to engage himself in that process, we agree with that wholeheartedly. But I can't alter the process.
I understand. I think another way I would put it is we need more information from Mr. Vogt so that we can have the opportunity to say yes.
Yeah.
Who's going to get the information? The staff or the commission?
I'm happy to go back to Mr. Vogt,
Oh,
if
good.
that's what the
That-
commission
And staff is happy to have the commission reach back out to him. I think you have been very successful. We don't have an issue with that. We just realize, we're just trying to be very clear about the process and the process for work permits and being consistent and what the message we get from you on a monthly basis when we meet here and how you're wanting us to handle whether it's pennant policy or any things that we do for you. There's a process and rules and regulations, and we've been hearing from you. You want us to follow through with that. That's all we were trying to do in this particular case.
Thank you.
Just a comment. If you could get this meeting and include Mr. Renee, I'm sure you'll find Mr. Renee a much easier person to work with. It is just knowing him and the amount of time I've spent with him, I think he'd be more successful. If that was any way in the cards, and you could say,
Mr. Renee was present with the meeting that I had. And,
oh, he was.
Yeah, and both Mr. Renee and Mr. Vogt could not have been nicer. So let's be clear.
Well, yeah, and I just want to reiterate that I agree with Chairman McCready that we're looking for him to give us enough documentation we can say yes. Like I said, again, it's a matter of having the documentation for the administrative record that we keep in our archive records back there. So there's a history of what goes on with a landmark. We are not on some kind of crusade to keep him or tie his hands so that he can't do what he needs to do to the landmark. But we are obligated to be transparent to the public and have documentation about what's going on with the landmarks. It's as simple as that. So we are looking on how to say yes.
Okay, I want to ask a question about the business of raising the archway to accommodate the roadway. Now, why isn't that maintenance? If you have the roadway at a given level, you raise the roadway 3 or 4 inches, you know you're going to hit that archway. So you have to move the whole structure up.
Okay, so
to me, that sounds like maintenance.
and that's fine.
And we can determine that.
If you guys, so I would say it like this. This is how I would see it. I don't know because I don't have anything in front of me to look at. So I don't know. What I got via an email was, I want to raise something 4 inches. That's it. If somebody just came to you and said, I want to take a landmark and I want to make it 4 inches taller, that's not maintenance, okay? I don't know. I would say, given what Chairman McCready said, where he said, you know, there's been some rocks that have gone off, and there's been this and there's been that. Maybe it's repair and maintenance, but it's repairing it back to where it was many years ago, not to where it was when it fell. And that's part of what I would expect the applicant to document, is to say, well, you know, over a period of time, there's been physical changes to this landmark, and say, you know, this and that and this occurred, and then we're trying to make it so it's stable and it's in keeping with the design and da-da-da, and then we bring it to you. That's all we would expect. And so, and then we would present it to you as repair and maintenance. But when someone just comes and says, I'm going to alter it by 4 inches, you know, then I don't know how you can make, so we just have to have the rationale, and we look at it compared to how we know the history or what documentation. Sometimes we have to rely a lot on the applicants because there isn't clear documentation in the file of what it really looked at. I mean, if you see some of these pictures, they really focus on the structure, the metal part of it, and not the columns.
Right.
I don't even know if the column height is actually documented anywhere.
Right.
So we would just be looking at the whole picture, and honestly, it's totally within, if you decide it's repair and maintenance, we're done. But somebody within the city makes that determination. That's all we're saying, you know, or at least that's what we felt that we've been tasked with at this point. Not that we're not even coming to some conclusion, and I think that's where we've kind of going off on this whole issue, is staff has not come to any conclusion. You know, we're looking to just document the situation at this point.
One of the things that we found successful in working with Mrs. Meigs at the firehouse is that we went over, it's a question of a citizen coming before a city body and trying to fit in and trying to deal with the specifics that you're telling them they have to do. And for a lot of people out there, that's a difficult proposition. And so what we did, we sat down with her, and with the 10-year maintenance plan, we helped her revise that. And we have something that we think will work. And she was happy to see that. And she was willing to take out this and that and put this in and so on. And we think we have something that's going to work out. So you have to kind of, we have to kind of have some sort of melding of the two, your specifications and ordinances and a property owner just living there and trying to cope with this new world that they're not accustomed to.
Right, and I just would point out that, I've spoken to her, she's a lovely woman, and on a couple of occasions, and, she just copied someone else's, and she's very clear with me, she just copied someone else's 10-year plan. And I think that that's something in the future the commission should really work on outside of just a particular project, but should really look at what do you want to see in them and what kind of guidance can we give people, because there isn't really a clear handout or a path to success for these individuals when they come in. And, we're stuck with being the regulatory and the review agency. And as we all know, you can't ask the fox to guard the chicken coop. So I can't write a document and both review it. And it does get very complicated because we try to be, reach out and be ombudsman type people but we're very clear our role within the city is a review agency. So, we would be happy to work with the commission and develop some guidelines on these timelines so people do realize what it's supposed to be achieving. And I would even go as far as to say is that maybe developing some findings that need to be made. The timeline achieves this, it furthers this, with some real specific language in there. So we know, and then obviously I know that the other issue is it's a 10-year timeline, but every year the Mills Act rolls into another year. So we really need to make sure that at some point they're coming back and the timeline is getting extended as the contract gets extended. And so we had 10-year timeframes. We may have some landmarks that are in their 20th year of Mills Act. I don't know. I mean, the short period of time I've been here, and maybe they're not, because as we say, the Mills Act keeps lowers their property taxes, which lowers the revenue to the citizens of Ojai. We all acknowledge that. So there's a benefit cost to this process of doing the Mills Act. And so we need to just be diligent about when we're doing that, what is the city, what is the community really giving for this offset? So I think there is a lot of things we can do, and I think we probably need some more guidance on what we need to see. And unfortunately, I think she kind of fell into the worst case scenario because a lot of her Mills Act or timeline referred to landscaping. And so I'm really happy that the commission, I reached out to her after we continued that item that night. So I had a voicemail from her, and unfortunately I got it after we had already had our meeting. And spoke with her, both her and her husband, and they were very willing to meet with you. And I spoke with both you and Craig, and I was really happy to see us work that through. And I'm pleasant that it has a positive outcome.
I'm going to give a report on that tonight.
Oh, good.
Okay. So I will reach out to Mr. Vogt and Mr. Rennie. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that last name correctly, but do we need to pass a resolution that I'm going to do that, or I can just say that I'm going to do that here tonight?
I think you can just go ahead and say you're going to do it.
Okay. And I'm going to ask for clarification on the repairs that we've done to the gate and the arch. And have we moved that staff will ask for clarification on ownership? I'm sorry.
I think that the decision please correct me if I'm wrong, but I think the decision was that we're going to ask him to reach out first, because as you
Okay.
pointed out,
All right.
staff contracting them just seems to make things
Okay,
more agitated.
all right. And, I want to say again that they have, for many, many years taken care of this landmark, and so we want to be careful that we acknowledge that and our appreciation for that. Are there any other comments on this item? Item number 4, the Historic Preservation Award. I understand we have some commissioner comments, but Mr. Commissioner Walker's not here.
I can tell you who
Okay. Commissioner Hill?
Commissioner Walker and I have, we concur on the nomination for this person. And that's for Tia Andrews, who's a member of the board of directors at the museum. And she, she is a master gardener. And she and, Brian, you can tell us who the landscaping person that she worked with. He's the
Now on our
landscape
board?
art.
Lawrence Nicklin?
That's it. And they put together the Chumash Gardens over there that has really turned out nice.
It's really nice.
And it really emphasizes the role of the Chumash in Ojai, highlighted at the museum. So Craig and I both would suggest Tia Andrews,
Is that TIA?
TIA.
And tonight we are, is the item, Ms. Waldstein, to just discuss nominees tonight?
Yes.
Well, I've given it a lot of thought, and I couldn't come up with anyone.
That's rare for you.
Do we want to wait until our next meeting so that Commissioner Walker can be here, or should we proceed with this tonight? We do have a quorum.
I have a nomination. Sorry. to
Commissioner
be a
Bisaccia?
Stick in the mud.
That's what you're here for.
There's a man who lives in our community who is, I would say, a master craftsman who's worked on many historic buildings, not just in the city of Ojai, but in the sphere of influence. And the only one that I know of off the top of my head of historic note that he's worked on to restore in the city of Ojai was the Ojai Women's Club.
Oh, yeah.
And also, he's the carpenter for the Pratt House. And I worked with him also on the William P. Ford House. And so he's very oriented towards historic authenticity. And he cut his teeth working on Victorian houses in Humboldt County. And that man's name is Mr. Aaron Clapp, with 2 P's. And this is what he does for a living, and he's done it for a long time. And I would say it's sort of a labor of love more than anything. But he is a fine craftsman. Just as an example of something he did at the Pratt House, the Pratt House never really had much of a kitchen. It was kind of a, lowly kitchen for the house. And he and another man here in Ojai, they were partners in a business together. They visited the Gamble House, and from that they were inspired to build this kitchen for the Pratt House, which was, at least based on something of Green's work. So anyway.
I have to say I don't know either one of these individuals, so I can't speak to the nominees.
Well, I've seen his work at the Pratt House, and the kitchen really does look nice. It's brought it, it's functional. The old kitchen in the Pratt House was pretty prehistoric, and this makes it into a very workable and charming looking in the green and green style.
Seems like it fits in as though
It does.
it would have been there had kitchens been important back then.
You know, it's interesting. You have gone to a craftsman. One of the things that I think that is becoming apparent in Ojai, and Darwin, you probably would know this, in the number of general contractors that are really targeting historic restorations.
Yeah.
And I see guys like Johnny Johnson, and I see guys like Chad Carper. These guys are really doing some incredible work now.
Well, not to, say anything about those people in the negative, but Aaron Clapp would be like a god for them.
Was he related to anyone that lived here in Ojai? I think we had a Fred Clapp, isn't that right?
No, he's not related. He's related to Betsy Clapp, who's on the city council.
Yeah.
That's his wife.
Oh,
So typically, at what time of year do we make the nomination?
So the way it's worked in the past is you begin the discussions, which is what you're doing tonight.
Okay.
And then if there's one nomination or more than one nomination, I believe the commissioner or commissioners that are making those nominations prepares a little written report on each of those individuals and presents it at the next meeting to the commission.
Okay.
And then the commission makes a decision on who they'd like to nominate for the award. And then once you make that nomination, it goes to the city council and they approve it.
Okay.
we don't want to wait till the other three members come back and see if they have a nomination.
I think we should.
I think we should
continue
wait.
this.
One of the things is that on page 1 of 1 in attachment A, there's the criteria, and they had to fit into some of those items that would interpretation of historic properties, design and planning efforts to preserve historic, all of those things. They may, just like when we do a house, several of these might be applicable to Tia and to Aaron.
Aaron.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you both. Item 5, Ojai Day discussion.
Oh, yeah.
Heather?
This was on your calendar in past years for the month of July to begin discussion on planning of Ojai Day. So now that there's not a committee, I don't know, I guess it would be up to the chair to assign an ad hoc, or the commission is going to plan this event as a whole, but that would be up to you.
Okay. We do hold the jail open every year. It's an all-day thing. In addition to that, we've had some difficulties getting our supplies down there on time, and so I think that this is an opportunity. Thank you for the checklist, because maybe we can.
Before we do that, can we go over the checklist and cross out the things that
Let's do that.
aren't in there? Page 1 of 1.
Commissioner Boggs?
Thank you. Page 1 of 1, typically the commission hosts a poetry contest where you can cross out that. We do not do that anymore. And also, a sentence number 4, line 4, in the same paragraph, there also have been times in the past when the commission has dressed like inmates. We have done that every year, not just sometimes, since we got our shirts with stripes on them that say Ojai Jail. And if you don't have one, I can loan you mine since I won't be here that day. Then turning the page over to
Checklist.
the checklist for commissioners. The fourth item says prepare contest and create flyers, cross that out. And press release about the contest. Well, we still need press release, but there's no contest, so cross that out. In August, contact the head of the English and History departments, cross that out. And then down below, Monday after Ojai Day, Rose Box to prepare a thank you letter. We don't do that, we haven't done that for years. And order awards for contest, and prepare and submit to the newspaper the winners of the contest, which we no longer have a contest. So
Okay.
just cross those things out. And then we'll talk about getting the stuff there and setting it up.
Okay. Thanks, Commissioner Boggs. So every year we do apply for the, apply to the city for to hold the jail open, is that right, Commissioner Boggs?
Yes.
Is that my job this year?
Yes.
Okay, I'll put my name by that. The fans and all the stuff, the flyers and all that, is that my job also to make sure that we have adequate supplies for that?
They're all in the jail unless you have, do you have fans or anything in the office, Heather? It's all inside the jail.
Okay.
So it's good if you could get a chance to get in there ahead of time to make sure that the rats
there.
haven't eaten it or something.
Okay.
And also, I have the big go to jail sign at my house. Jolene had them put plastic on it, what do you call that?
Laminated.
Yeah, Jolene had them laminated and she gave them to me, and then for some reason, I took them home instead of getting them back into the jail last year. So next meeting, I'll bring them to you here, I guess. Or I'll leave them, maybe I'll just leave them at the desk, Heather.
Okay.
And you can save them till Ojai Day.
Okay.
And one of the other things, though, is what we really need is a phone number. So at 10 o'clock, we can call somebody and say they have not delivered our tables or our shade umbrellas or tents or whatever. Because for the last
We always have trouble getting our table there on
The
time.
last 5 years, the table's not there. And we need to call someone at the last minute or go running around the park trying to find. Actually, last year, they did have a problem. They ran out of tables.
Yeah.
So that wasn't that they didn't know about it. I think it was
So
that they
I'm
ran out
happy
of.
to get there earlier. That's not a problem for me. So just maybe, is Ruben the one that I need to contact for the table issue?
No,
No.
I think Amber Young, isn't she doing it again? Do you know, Heather?
I don't know, but I can find out.
Amber did it last year.
Yeah, because we were kind of scrambling at the last minute last year.
You need her phone number if she's down there, or the people that supply the stuff. You need a
Yeah.
phone number that you can call them while you're down there. Ruben is not on duty on Saturday.
Okay,
See,
so it's
city
just
work-
prior to the day.
Right, city workers
Right.
are not
So
on Saturday.
I'll figure out who I need to contact prior to that. And then lastly, Commissioner Boggs, we have for the last 2 years had the police car there, loaned to us nicely by
Dwayne Bowers,
Bowers.
yeah. And all you have to do is give him a phone call.
I was going to ask you to do that.
And I can do that before I leave. Yes, I'll be happy to do that.
Thank you.
And then I also started getting Boy Scouts, so that there was somebody standing by the police car, and so people weren't touching it and trying to do things, because it is a valuable thing to Dwayne Bowers, and he's nice enough to drive it in there at 6 o'clock in the morning and park it.
Yeah.
And so I thought maybe Rick Bisaccia would be a good one to get Boy Scouts. But I thought that Brian Roney mentioned something about getting his Villanova students involved. So he may have something there for you that I don't know about.
Okay. And I think I don't see anything else on here that's an issue, but thank you for putting this together.
Are
So,
you gonna set up the schedule later?
yes.
Okay.
Yeah, when people are here, when more
Yeah.
commissioners are here. And then afterwards, I believe staff wrote the letter to thank Dwayne Bowers and also to thank the Boy Scouts. I think they sent a letter to Mr. Otsby, who does the Boy Scout. So-
Okay. Thank you, Commissioner Boggs. Planning report?
I do not have anything other than the proposed firehouse landmark report addendum, but it sounds like Commissioner Hill will be taking care of that.
Do you have future agenda items at this time?
Yeah, we have on the future agenda list, which I guess the commission needs to decide as a whole whether an ordinance for noncompliance with landmark requirements is something that you would be directing staff to start preparing, or if there needs to be more discussion on that. Then the other future agenda item is the Historic Sites of Merit workshop.
And what about the resolution of, I'm going to give you some material for the firehouse, but there has to be things that, since it's not on the agenda, we can't approve anything or go one way or another tonight. But we can't take a vote. But we would like the opportunity to work with the commission on, one, the ordinance that you were talking about, the non-compliance ordinance. We would like to work with you about the firehouse and have those as agendized.
Okay. Thank you. Commissioner Hill, did you want to give us an update on the firehouse? Thank you.
I want to start out by passing out what we did. Let me give you a little bit of, from the time that we met last, our committee has met, I'd say, 4 or 5 times. And that included a couple of meetings between Greg and myself. It included a trip to the Ventura County Fire Department administrative offices and a tour of their museum their firefighting museum. And we met with the county fire historian, Dave Wilson. Super guy. He was a former assistant chief of the county. And he led us all through it with a highlight on the specifics of Ojai. He provided us with a number. I'm going to just pass this packet around. This includes pictures of what other cities have done with their firehouses. It shows some of the pictures. Here's a picture of our firehouse when it included the balcony up above and then when it was all closed in. And you can take a look at the fire engine. That was an old LaFrance that was out in front of it. And there's some of the Simi firehouse. There's some up on the mountain up here fighting fires. Anyway, it's kind of a fun thing. Just start with Rick and you can just pass it around. And so we did that, and then we met with Berkeley Meeks, and we met at the firehouse, and in the so-called garage area. That's where the winery is located. And if you haven't been to the firehouse, it is a magnificent place inside. They kept the cement floor and they polished it so it looks really nice. And the fire department, back in the days when they polished their floors too. We sat down with her. She, as Kathleen said, when she got back to her desk after our last meeting, she had received a message from the owner, and that she would welcome any sort of reaching out on our part to her. And she was a little overwhelmed by the whole process, and we sat down with her and we showed her where she was running afoul of situations, and they really do want to be a landmark, and they really do want to pursue the Mills Act process also. So we did that, and then we had a wrap-up meeting, and we started out last meeting with the Firehouse Landmark Report Addendum that you prepared. And it went so far, and so that what we did, we took off from that and prepared a new one. And so
Oh, nice.
we don't have a, this is just open for discussion. Give one to Heather too. The new one, did Craig send it to you? Okay, good. And
Thank you.
You can give one to Brian too.
Thank you. Thank you.
And what you will see is, this is essentially like the other one, but then we've added some language. We've added, we beefed up section 2, types of construction or alteration other than those requiring a building or demolition permit that should be reviewed for appropriateness. And it continues on to the next page. And then lastly, in this little report, is a new preservation and rehabilitation timeline. And there's a lot of money that they're going to be spending in here, more than is necessary. But it gives you some idea how we changed the verbiage around. One of the things that Craig did, he went online and researched how other cities do this. And as it turns out, there is no one way that the state has said that you have to do your maintenance plan this way or that way. Every city kind of comes up with their own. And we looked at some other surveys that looked pretty good, and I said, Craig, I have no problem doing a new one if that's what you would like. He said, no, I think we can work with this one. So this is similar to what we already have in place. One of the things that I think that we're very sensitive to at this point is when you see the comment, do this as needed, do this as needed. It's just kind of it's a big pit that you can get yourself into. And I think you ran across this when they were doing the Ojai Valley School. They demolished a whole bunch of stuff that the contractor said, well, it needed to do this. And he made the decision rather than the city and our commission. So we're trying to avoid that. One of the things we singled out that there needs to be a maintenance schedule. And when we talk about maintenance, we're talking about electrical maintenance, we're talking about plumbing maintenance, we're talking about all the different features that a structure should have. And so you will see those maintenance items, rather than landscape maintenance as needed, you're going to see that there's going to be money spent on maintenance in each of those areas. Now, one of the things, this isn't necessarily something that the property owner would do and adhere exactly to this. They might defer to do one of these things to another date, or if they didn't have to do one of these things, they would move something up. So you see that they plan some of the big items in the beginning. One of the things in the year 2015, replace roof on upstairs apartment. And if you look at the pictures that you're looking through there, there's some pictures of our firehouse as it originally looked as far as the roof, and it was a tile roof. And so we're making a recommendation that it return to that state when they get to that item on their renewal plan. So I think you need to just read all of this and digest it for the next meeting, and we can discuss it at that time, Heather, on your agenda, and then we'll have all the rest of us there. And the other thing is that we keep coming up against the business of code enforcement. And what happens, I gotta find the one thing I was looking for.
While you're doing that, can we just clarify what you mean by future agenda or next agenda? So for the firehouse, is the commission saying that that should be on next month's agenda?
Yes.
Okay, it's going to need to be noticed again, as it was a public hearing before. Okay,
Yeah,
just clarifying.
and one of the things that, too many papers here tonight. Yes. I think it is. When we're talking about these people violating the enforcements of a landmark, and these are, and Rose, you'd be interested in this, enforcement of the landmark. And this is already in the code. It's $1,000 per day and or 6-month prison term until violation is remedied. Violation of a landmark is considered vandalism. That's a gist of a landmark. Enforcement of Mills Act, report and inspection on an annual basis. The report details work done and cost. Inspection to see if any work is done in violation of the agreement. Part of the contract must be HPC review of any changes to the property completed without a permit reviewed by HPC. And in violation, termination of Mills Act agreement by city at a cost of 12.5% of market value of property. So those are some pretty stiff penalties if people are going to violate the landmark and the Mills Act agreements.
Thank you.
So anyway,
Mr. Akins, do you have any report for us on your new museum?
You do. The new museum's going well. Just an update, again, because we're trying to keep in good graces with everybody. The gate in the back is in place. The only thing needed to be done is the paint. And because the trim hasn't been finished around the museum, they're just trying to make sure that the color that they paint the gate is exactly the color that they're going to finish the trim on the museum. And the trim's been held up because the city ran out of funds in order to complete that, and we'll complete that sometime after July 1st. And so I think Tony Thatcher was going to talk to Greg Grant, make sure that all our colors are in alignment, and we're doing the proper things. So
Okay.
Gate is there, it's in place. We've already had one mishap where a person got locked out going out to see the Chumash Garden, and David tells me that lady had to climb over the fence. We now have a doorstop there, right, David, for David's insistence, so. But we're really pleased with how the gate turned out, so. The other thing, Commissioner Bisaccia, if you have an issue getting Boy Scouts, I think I can get Boy Scouts from church if that becomes an issue, so, for the Ojai Day. That's all I got.
Thank you.
Could I go back to commissioner comments? More and more groups in Ojai are now asking me to give oral history stories. I'm a storyteller. Of course, they always look for David Mason first, and then he can't do it, then I'm second, but that's okay. And by the way, I think your birthday's coming up. David, happy birthday.
I think you're right. Councilwoman Strobel? Thank you for joining us tonight.
You're welcome. It's my pleasure. And I'm substituting for your liaison is Carol Smith. She's in not Arizona, Montana. I don't really have anything specific to report other than I sure learned a lot listening to tonight's meeting. So I'm glad you took the time to discuss the gate, because it seems like such a simple concept. But when you really start getting into it, I can see where it would be more intricate than I initially thought. So as you discuss things among yourselves, I learn a great deal. So thank you for that. But I don't really have anything. We canceled the first meeting in July, so it's sort of like vacation time for us. If you have any questions, I could answer.
I have a question. We never did have any agenda in our commission here about our budget for our commission. I was just wondering, the budget's passed, I understand.
Yes.
Is there some money for our commission?
Yes.
The budget for HPC continues, which with each fiscal year. The discussion would have been whether you wanted to request an increase in that budget or not. And that did come up at one of your agendas, I believe, back in March.
And another thing to keep in mind as far as the budget is for the HPC is if you have a project in mind. I mean, the jail always comes to mind for me, but there was some extra funds needed in something to do with the jail to get it, maybe all parts of it back here, the gate or something. If the HPC had a project in mind, a historic project, that's something that it could present to council to be included in the budget. But if it's just ongoing expenses and this type of thing, you wouldn't have had much discussion on it. So extra projects is what brings those discussions before council.
Thank
Any
you.
other questions?
I have one.
Okay. Is it easy?
Just one, it's a short one. Because we have done away with subcommittees on our commission, I serve on the, and I did serve on the tree subcommittee. I still am a member of the citywide tree committee. And I would like to know what the plans are on Ojai Avenue, the nice lineup of oak trees that are along the highway going past Ojai Valley School. And on the left, near the Ford Agency, or a little past the Ford Agency, there's a totally dead tree in there. And I don't know what caused its death, whether it was an insect. But you see this one brown thing in this nice row of trees, and I would hope that that wouldn't continue. I just was wondering what the building, as a tree committee person, I'm wondering what the
Actually, Terry, there's 1.5 dead on the left and 1 dead on the right. I just figured they need water.
I don't know if that's the case, or shouldn't they be taken care of, or?
There's
Okay,
one
I'm not even going to try to give you a nice, comfortable answer. But what I will ask is that, and I'm not sure if it would be Greg Grant or someone from the tree committee still exists. Someone from probably Greg Grant. I would suggest that you put it on your agenda and ask Greg to give you an update on brown trees and this type
See,
of thing.
We don't have a subcommittee. It's really not under our jurisdiction anymore unless.
But you can still request
Okay.
a report. I mean, it's something you've observed, it's a concern you have, it's a preservation of Ojai, so I would suggest you ask Mr. Grant to give you a report and let you know about those trees.
I know there is the tree committee is out there watering. They're doing it now. They're taking tanks of water and.
Well, and they're watering, you see, I don't know enough about this to give you really good answers. I can give you the answers you probably already know. They are watering the newly planted trees because they're not established, and they have ceased watering the, quote, established trees. But I would ask Mr. Grant to
Okay.
speak to you at the next meeting.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thanks for joining us tonight.
My pleasure.
With that, we are adjourned. Thank you, everybody. Thanks, Heather.
Later.